Hello, YouTube. I want to come back to the subject that I have covered before, but I want to expand a little bit on the subject matter. It has to do with the mysterious disappearance of people. And it's a universally recognized fact. Yeah, people disappear from the field of view of relatives, acquaintances, colleagues. There is no denial of this phenomenon. There can be many reasons for such a disappearance, all of which relate to natural causes. And we can list them here, but I think you know them yourselves. Sometimes the missing person is found and the background of the disappearance becomes clear, but it happens otherwise too. Someone leaves home to work, to study, or just to go to the store for bread and milk, and doesn't return either in the evening or the next day, or a month later, or a year later. Never. The dry numbers of all knowing statistics are such that 2 million people disappear without a trace on the planet every year. For individual countries, such data is also impressive. According to the Russian sources, England misses 5,000 of its citizens a year. France, respectively, 7,000. 8,500 people evaporate into nowhere in Italy, but in Germany, as many as 9,000 law-abiding Germans leave home and are inexplicably lost. Russia, of course, is breaking all records. 35,000 people disappeared there in 365 days. This is the population of a small town or village area. No one ever finds these poor people. Their close relatives are waiting, hoping, but the probability of seeing their children, husbands, wives, or parents, or friends, again, is reduced to zero. It is impossible to explain such a disappearance from the point of view of logic. Is a loving mother capable of abandoning her children forever, and a caring son disappear from the life of an old mother? The criminal account in such cases as a rule dominates. People are killed, kidnapped into slavery, cut to pieces for their organs. But there's also another kind of mysterious disappearance which cannot be realized from the generally accepted everyday positions. To understand the problem, you need to know its history. The chronology of events is such that the first mentions of the mysterious disappearance of people go back into the darkness of centuries. For example, this case. What happened in the year 1570 can be called a miracle. It took place in the famous city of Veliky Novgorod. The completely unrestrained guards, I would call it secret police of the time, of the Tsar or King Ivan the Terrible, committed outrages in the city. Almost the entire population was destroyed. Neither pregnant women nor babies were spared. People were drowned in the icy water of Volkhov, frozen in the snow, skinned alive. The mildest punishment on the verge of mercy was considered beheading or hanging. A terrible fate awaited the family of the peasant Mikita Soroka. His wife, 5 children, and the head of the family himself were captured by the Tsar's henchmen. They were half-naked, pushed out of the house into the cold, and dragged to the river to drown. Pleas for mercy and appeals to mercy set the royal servants into a cheerful mood. They openly laughed in the faces of the unfortunate and kicked them to the place of execution, seeing that it was impossible to pity these inhumans. Mikita appealed to the Lord. He did not ask for himself and his wife, but for his young children. The heavens were sullenly silent, not responding in any way to the desperate calls for help. It was only when the executioners and their victims crowded around the icy edge, encircling the black water, that a miracle happened. All 5 children dissolved into the air, and immediately there was a terrible crash. A white crack appeared on the ice surface, then another, then a third. The terrified guardsmen immediately lost their playful mood, and the ice floe on which they were standing with Mikita and his wife turned over. Death in the icy water overtook both the bearers of evil and those doomed to death. The terrible end has passed. Only innocent souls were saved. The mysterious phenomenon freed the children from terrible physical torments. But what happened to them next is shrouded in obscurity. They simply dissolved into air. Centuries marked by cruelty and ignorance have sunk into oblivion, or at least, some people believe that. But it is noteworthy that in Russia, mysterious disappearances of people took place also in the 17th century. In the Novgorod Chronicles, there's a story about how the monk Kirillov disappeared from the monastery right during the meal. It also mentions how, right in the middle of the Suzdal Principality Square, in front of the whole or entire people, the scandalous Manka, nicknamed the Goat, vanished. People said that the devil took her away. But let's travel now through time to the 20th century. In 1936, a group of geologists settled in the village of Elizaveta near Krasnoyarsk, Siberia. A few days later, returning home after the next route or itinerary, the geologist saw a completely extinct village. Things in the houses remained untouched. There were 2 bicycles lying on the main village street. One of the geologists, now he's a professor, he's a doctor of geological and mineralogical sciences, Barsukov, still remembers with a shudder the horror they experienced trying to get into one of the houses, the door which was closed from the inside. They had to break out the glass, and then it turned out that the door was barricaded from inside with household utensils. A family of 4 adults and 3 children lived in the house. Geologists reported the incident to the local NKVD, that's the ancestor of the KGB, Soviet Secret Police Department, and a car with employees of the KGB quickly arrived from there. However, the investigation was unsuccessful, and the geologists had to sign a non-disclosure agreement on this case. As Barsukov, one of the geologists, later said, after some time passed, he was summoned to Moscow by the NKVD, where he again testified. Now, the city of Sverdlovsk, it's got its former name now, Ekaterinburg, after the communists were thrown out. It was a large industrial center in 1978. Housing construction in it was proceeding at a rapid pace. New buildings appeared as if by magic, which of course pleased people, but still did not solve the housing problem. In one of the residential quarters, there was a wonderful courtyard where there was complete freedom for children. A vast forest belt began right behind the buildings. Mothers with strollers and dog lovers with their pets, they liked to walk there. There was a beautiful house, and in it lived Andrei Fedoseev, a young man who was well established. His apartment was located on the ground floor, and the windows They overlook the courtyard, very low. Despite this inconvenience, the owner took care of the house and one day pasted the wallpaper on the walls. It was in July and the sun was baking mercilessly. Andrei opened all the windows and he went to freshen up in the shower. So there were children in the courtyard and they saw open windows. So there were mischievous children. They wanted to play. So they decided to play games. They took out plastic tubes from fountain pens, put lumps of plasticine in their mouth, and spat out wallpaper so very precisely and very diligently. The owner appeared from the shower just at the moment when this action was coming to the end. Besides himself with despair and rage, Fedosеев jumped out into the courtyard to catch at least one of them and punish. The brats rushed into the scattering, and Andrei followed the two who, with all their might, rushed towards the grove. It was right there, open for the youth and for the adult hurrying after them. The trees rustled their leaves complacently, and the thick grass softly crept under the feet of the runners. The boys could clearly hear the noise created by the pursuer behind them, and they went deeper and deeper into the forest belt. The man did not lag behind. He steadily approached them, and soon the children's ears could distinguish his heavy breathing. Suddenly everything went quiet. The children did not immediately realize that the chase had stopped. They were hiding among the bushes for some time and then cautiously returned to the courtyard. There was a quiet and calm atmosphere. No one shouted, cursed, or no one asked for their parents. Everything was quiet. While the pursuer disappeared into the... He just disappeared. He vanished. He was nowhere to be seen. And the kids, after an hour, just forgot about this incident. Well, they had to remember the next day when the strict police officers interrogated the boys. The reason was that Andrei Fedosеев, having run into the forest belt, disappeared, vanished. No one ever saw him again. It seemed that the man simply disappeared vanished into thin air, leaving a feeling of, I guess, slight remorse in the souls of the young brats who caused it. Anyway, the cases of missing people are not that uncommon. Many are soon found alive or dead. The search for others does not yield any results. So, for example, in 2013, Russian northern city Petrozavodsk resident Alexander Krylov disappeared under very strange circumstances. He was returning with a friend from a business trip, but got into an accident. When the police arrived at the scene, the man was not in the car. There was no signs of struggle at all, and he was never found. There are so many other cases like this, and please see my first video as well. I will put the link to it. It's a sad phenomenon, and it's going on, but I wanted to bring you, because there are some undertones of paranormal phenomena associated with disappearance of people as well. And I'll bring you more stories on the subject in the future. Thank you for your attention to my work. If you can support my research, you'll find links on how to do it in the description to this video. Please like my videos. Please subscribe to my channel.